The image of the Prince and Princess of Wales has been, for over a decade, the monarchy's most potent asset. Stable, modern, loving, and impeccably dutiful. They were the terrifically normal counterbalance to the years of turmoil, the living promise of a serene and sustainable future. Their calendar of engagements, their carefully managed public appearances, their smiling walkabouts, all were threads in a grand tapestry of continuity being woven for the 21st century. Which is why the email that landed in Sir Michael Sweeney's inbox at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening as he was drafting a briefing on the King's slow convalescence felt less like a message and more like a detonation. It was from the Prince of Wales's private secretary, and its subject line was deceptively simple: Family Update. The body of the text was just 5 paragraphs long. By the time Sir Michael finished reading them, the color had drained from his face. He picked up his secure line to the communications office, his voice uncharacteristically thin. "Alicia," he said, "cancel your evening. We have a situation. The Waleses, they're stepping back." The official announcement, released 48 agonizingly secretive hours later, was a masterclass in polite revolution. It began with gratitude for the public's support during the King's period of rest, praised the steadfast work of the Princess Royal and the Duke of Edinburgh, and then delivered the blow with devastating serenity. After much reflection, the Prince and Princess of Wales have made the decision to temporarily step back from their frontline royal duties to focus on their young family. This period of concentrated family time, anticipated to last for the remainder of the children's current school years, will see them residing primarily at their private home in Windsor. While they will retain their patronages and continue to undertake a limited number of duties aligned with their core charitable interests, they will not be taking on new public engagements or representing the monarch officially for the foreseeable future. They believe this decision is in the best interests of their children's privacy and well-being and are profoundly grateful for the understanding of the public they serve. In the newsrooms, the reaction was pandemonium. On social media, it was bedlam. Hashtag Wills and Kate, hashtag Megxit2, and hashtag Royal Breakdown began trending worldwide. But inside the gilded cages of the palaces, the reaction was a profound seismic shock that reached all the way to the quiet Scottish estate where a king was trying to mend. The institution, still reeling from one body blow, had just been struck by another. This was not an illness imposed upon them. This was a conscious, deliberate choice. The future of the monarchy had just decided it needed a break from the present. To understand the Waleses' decision, one must view it not as a sudden whim, but as the culmination of pressures that had been building for years, pressures thrown into stark, terrifying relief by the king's collapse. For Prince William, his father's great exhaustion was not a news story, it was a horrifying prophecy. He had watched the most prepared monarch in history, a man who had waited 70 years for the role, be broken by its demands. The private meetings in the 1844 room, from which William was notably absent, had left him with a chilling realization. The institution would sacrifice the individual for the sake of the crown. His father was not being given a holiday. He was being quietly, politely, put out to pasture until he was deemed fit for service again. The humanity of the king was secondary to the functionality of the office. This institutional pragmatism collided with a deeply personal fear. Prince William, more than any royal in recent history, is a product of a fractured childhood, his world forever scarred by the loss of his mother in a media frenzy. His life's work, often unspoken but clearly visible in his actions, has been to build for his own children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, the normal childhood he was denied. He drives them to school, he coaches their sports teams, he guards their privacy with a ferocity that is both admirable and, to the old guard, a slightly baffling. The king's illness created a vacuum, and that vacuum began to suck William in. Overnight, the slimmed-down monarchy became a starved monarchy. The public and media gaze, once diffused across several senior royals, now focused with laser intensity on William and Tate. The demand for their presence, for their symbolic power, doubled and then tripled. The calendar of engagements drafted by the household, while understanding, was relentless. They were now the sole face of a youthful, forward-looking monarchy. It was like watching a trap close, a close friend of the couple was later quoted as saying. Every time William saw his father on the news, looking frail, he saw his own future. Every time he had to miss one of Lewis's school plays for a ribbon cutting, he felt a piece of his soul being chipped away. The he and the spare dynamic was gone. It was now just the heir, and the weight was crushing him. For Kate, the pressure was different but equally acute. The perfect princess narrative, a source of her immense popularity, had become a gilded cage. The expectation of perpetual poise, the scrutiny of her every outfit, every expression, every interaction with her children was a relentless psychological tax. She watched her husband retreat into a shell of anxiety, saw the shadows under his eyes deepen, and feared for the happy, grounded family life they had fought so hard to build. The catalyst, insiders suggest, was a small, private moment. It was a Thursday evening in early autumn. Prince Louis, then 7, had been struggling with a difficult piece of homework. He had asked his father for help, but William was in his study, on a video call with Commonwealth officials. By the time William emerged, Louis was asleep, his homework unfinished, a note from his teacher the next morning expressing gentle concern. It was a trivial event, the kind that happens in millions of households, but for William it was an epiphany. He was missing the very life he was supposedly protecting. He was becoming his own father, distant and duty-bound, and his son was paying the price. That night, over a quiet dinner at Adelaide Cottage, away from the eyes of staff in the world, the decision was made. "We can't do this," William reportedly said, the fatigue evident in his voice. "Not like this. Not if it costs them." Kate, who had been feeling the same tectonic shifts, agreed. The choice was no longer between duty and family. The choice was to save their family from duty. Presenting this decision to the institution was like declaring a personal war on centuries of tradition. The initial meeting, held in the Prince of Wales's office at Clarence House, was a study of polite seething conflict. On one side, William and Kate, calm but resolute. On the other, a phalanx of senior courtiers led by Sir Michael Sweeney, who had been drafted in due to the gravity of the situation. "Your Royal Highness, with the utmost respect, this is not feasible," Sir Michael began, his tone that of a banker explaining a catastrophic loss. "The monarch is incapacitated. The public's confidence is fragile. You and the princess are the linchpin. To step back now would be seen as an abandonment. It would be constitutional chaos." The arguments were laid out with cold institutional logic. The patronages would wither without visible leadership. The hundreds of organizations that relied on their spotlight would be cast in shadow. The media, already in a frenzy over the king's health, would interpret it as a vote of no confidence in the entire institution. The word Megxit was uttered, not as a comparison but as a warning of the reputational firestorm to come. William's counter-arguments were rooted in a different kind of logic, that of sustainability. What is the point in preserving an institution that destroys the people inside it? He asked, his voice steady but firm. "My father is the proof that the current model is broken. We are trying to build a new one that can actually survive. A monarchy that grinds its future kings into dust has no future." He presented it not as a retreat, but as a strategic repositioning. They were not disappearing. They would maintain their digital presence, their foundational work on early childhood and the environment. They would simply be doing it on their own terms, from their family home, protecting their children's formative years from the corrosive glare of the spotlight. It was, he argued, the only way to ensure his children emerged as well-adjusted adults capable of one day bearing the crown without breaking. The courtiers were aghast. The concept of work-life balance is anathema to an institution built on the principle of the firm coming first. The meeting stretched for hours, becoming a fundamental clash of ideologies. The old guard saw the crown as a sacred, immutable office. The Waleses saw it as a failing family business in desperate need of a humane restructuring. The battle lines were drawn across 2 weeks of tense, secret negotiations. Drafts of the press release were exchanged like diplomatic cables between warring nations. The palace communications team fought for language that emphasized temporary, limited, and in support of the king. William and Kate's team insisted on the words family, well-being, and foreseeable future. The most significant victory for the Waleses was the concession